This is our project on the tundra. The tundra is an extremely cold and frigid biome with little biotic diversity. The tundra has very short growing and reproduction seasons, and energy is generally found in the form of dead organic material. There are two types of tundras: the Arctic tundra, which surrounds the North and South poles, and the alpine tundra, which is located at high altitude where trees cannot grow. The tundra is a very cold and barren place, and temperatures are often around -70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is why the ground is permanently frozen from 10 inches deep to 3 feet deep, which is known as permafrost. The tundra only gets about 6 to 10 inches of precipitation, and as you can probably imagine, it's mostly snow, and this is an annual precipitation. During summer, days are almost 24 hours long, and during winter, days are almost non-existent with the sun barely rising. Vegetation in the tundra is very low to the ground due to the fact of high winds that limit the height of all of the vegetation that grows in the tundra, and also because of permafrost, which was discussed above, which limits the growth and size of the roots. Vegetation is also very sparse due to the harsh conditions of the tundra, again because of permafrost and because of high winds, and also because during the winters the nights are almost the entire day. And trees are rare, but they do occur in some instances. They're generally very low if they are found in the tundra. And some examples of these low vegetation that I've discussed above are Arctic moss, Arctic willow, bearberry, caribou moss, and Labrador tea, which are all plants that are very close to the ground with shallow roots. This example food chain of the tundra is very similar to others that we've studied this year. First, producers such as grasses and caribou moss get energy from the sun. They then grow large enough to supply caribou and musk ox, as well as other animals, which are consumers, with enough food to survive. These animals then become populated enough to supply animals such as the Arctic wolf and brown bear, which are secondary and tertiary consumers with enough food to survive.
Though the tundra does have low biodiversity, it still contains a variety of different animals. Herbivores, or animals who feed off just vegetation or producers, there is the snowshoe hare, the elk, and the lemmings. For omnivores, or animals who feed off vegetation and other animals, there are ravens, the Arctic fox, the grizzly bears, and the caribou. For carnivores, or animals who just feed off other animals, there are polar bears and wolves. The first fun fact about the tundra biome is that the tundra is a carbon dioxide sink, which means that the tundra absorbs carbon dioxide. The next fun fact about the tundra biome is that the ground that is permanently frozen in the tundra biome is called permafrost. The Arctic tundra surrounds the North Pole. Alpine tundras are located at high altitudes. 20% of the Earth's surface is covered in tundras. The Antarctic Peninsula and isolated Antarctic islands, mainly in the North Pole, are all tundras. There are many different types of interactions. There's predator-prey, mutualism, parasitism, competition, and communalism. Predator-prey is when one species hunts another species for food. Examples of this are with the snowy owl and the lemming, and the Arctic fox and the lemming. In both cases, the lemming is the prey, and the snowy owl and the Arctic fox are the predators. The snowy owl and the Arctic fox hunt the lemming for food, and that is why they are predators. Mutualism is when two species both benefit from the interaction. An example of this is with the Arctic poppy The Arctic bumblebee. The Arctic bumblebee gets the nectar and food from the poppy, while the poppy gets pollinated. This interaction is mutually beneficial for both species. Parasitism is when one species exploits another species without giving the other species any benefit. An example of this is between the Arctic wolf and the liver tapeworm. The liver tapeworm lives inside the Arctic wolf's intestine, eating all the nutrients it can find. This is good for the tapeworm because it gets all the nutrients, but is bad for the wolf because all its nutrients gets taken away. Competition is when two species compete for resources or land. An interesting phenomenon that clearly happens in the tundra is population cycles. This is when one species is at the peak of its population, while its competitor is between its peaks. An example of this is with the snowshoe hare and the lynx. Lastly is communalism. This is when the two species interact, but neither is put at a disadvantage. An example of this is when the caribou is looking for food, the Arctic fox will follow it. The caribou will dig a shallow hole in the snow to find food, and after the caribou is done, the Arctic fox goes to the hole and digs deeper to find more food. Another example is when the Arctic fox follows a polar bear, and after the polar bear hunts and eats its food, the Arctic fox will go in and scavenge for food. This is our works cited page.